The morning light spilled through the tall windows of the warehouse, casting long shadows across the rows of shelves. It was a busy place, loud, fast, and full of people rushing to meet deadlines. Speed was everything here. The faster you worked, the more you were valued. Among the workers was a man named James. He was older than most, with a steady, quiet way about him. James had joined the company just a few weeks ago. He didn't say much, but when he worked, he gave his full attention to every task. You could tell he was determined, even if he wasn't the fastest. Then there was the manager, Mr. Collins. He was sharp-tongued and impatient, always pushing everyone to move quicker. He didn't have much patience for mistakes or delays. The moment he noticed James working slower than the others, he didn't hold back. "James, you're too slow for this job, Mr. Collins said one afternoon, his voice cold and sharp. "If you can't keep up, maybe this isn't the place for you." James didn't respond right away. There was something in his eyes, a quiet strength, maybe from a past nobody here knew. He just nodded and went back to work, but inside, a storm was building. Most of James's co-workers didn't know much about him. What they did know was simple. James was a war veteran. He had served his country with honor and had come back with medals and stories he rarely shared. His time in the military wasn't easy. The training was harsh, long days and nights filled with drills, learning to stay calm under pressure, and making decisions where lives depended on him. Every move had to be precise. There was no room for rushing or careless mistakes. That discipline stayed with James, even now. When he worked, he took his time to do things carefully. He checked his work twice, making sure it was right. Sometimes that meant he wasn't the fastest person on the floor, but those who looked closely could see the steady hands of a man who knew the value of patience and precision. There was a story James often thought about, though he never told anyone. It was about a moment in the field, under fire, when rushing could have meant disaster. He learned that slow, steady focus could save lives. That lesson shaped everything he did, in the army and now in the warehouse. Still, fitting into this new world wasn't easy. The warehouse moved fast, faster than James's careful pace. Some people saw his slower speed and didn't understand. To them he was just behind, not seeing the bigger picture of why he worked that way. James carried his quiet pride with him. He knew what he was capable of: loyalty, dedication, and strength. But he also felt the weight of being different, of trying to prove himself in a place where speed was king. The more the manager criticized him, the heavier that weight felt. But James kept his head down. He wasn't ready to give up, not yet. One busy afternoon, the tension finally spilled over. James was stacking boxes carefully, making sure each label was clear and every package was secure. But to Mr. Collins, it wasn't fast enough. "James, what are you doing? You're way too slow," the manager snapped, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "We don't have time to babysit. If you can't keep up, maybe you don't belong here." James paused, swallowing the hurt rising inside. He looked up, trying to explain. "I'm doing my best, sir. I'm making sure it's done right. That way nothing gets lost or damaged." But Mr. Collins just waved him off. "Best isn't good enough. You need to speed up, or you're going to slow the whole team down." His voice was sharp, dismissive, like James's effort didn't matter at all. Some of the workers nearby exchanged glances. They had noticed how hard James worked, how carefully he did things. Quiet murmurs of support began to spread, but nobody spoke up. It was a delicate situation, and the manager's words felt final. James forced himself to stay calm, hiding the sting behind a mask of professionalism. Inside though, he felt crushed. The words hit deeper than just criticism. It felt like an attack on everything he was trying to rebuild. He wasn't just slow, he realized. He was misunderstood. Judged by a quick glance, dismissed without knowing the story behind his pace. As the day went on, James kept working, but the weight of those words stayed with him. Would this job be the place where he finally found a new start, or was it slipping away because he wasn't fast enough? His heart beat heavy with the question. The fear of losing this chance after everything he had been through. The warehouse buzzed around him, but inside, James felt a quiet storm. Something had to change. But what? That night, James sat alone in his small apartment, the quiet feeling heavier than the ticking clock on the wall. The warehouse was far behind him now, but the weight of the day pressed down harder than ever. He thought about his years in the military, the long hours, the tough training that never let up, how every mistake could cost more than just a job. Discipline wasn't just a rule, it was a way of life. Honor wasn't something given, it was earned, through loyalty and strength, and yet here he was, labeled too slow, as if all those years of service didn't matter. The words echoed in his mind, sharp and unfair. How could someone who had faced danger and carried the weight of others' lives be judged by a speed he never needed to rush? James rubbed his hands together, trying to shake off the frustration. He wanted so badly to prove himself, not just to the manager, but to the people around him, and most of all to himself. There was a soft knock on the door. It was Sarah, a co-worker who had noticed James's quiet struggles from the start. She brought him a cup of coffee, and sat down beside him. "You're doing better than you think," she said gently. "I see how hard you work, don't let that guy make you feel small." James nodded, grateful for the kindness. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind him he wasn't alone. The night stretched on, and with it came a mix of hope and fear. Tomorrow, he would meet with HR. He didn't know what would happen, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to back down without a fight. Some truths were about to come to light. The next morning, James walked into the HR office with steady steps. His heart was pounding, but his face stayed calm. This was his chance to be heard, to show the truth behind the quiet man, who worked carefully, not quickly. Miss Reynolds, the HR representative, greeted him warmly and motioned for Mr. Collins, the manager, to join them. The air was tense as they all sat down around the table. Miss Reynolds opened James's personnel file, and began to read aloud. "James enlisted in the military over 20 years ago," she said clearly. "He served multiple tours overseas, earning several commendations for bravery and leadership." She paused, letting the words settle in the room. "Among his awards are the Bronze Star and the Combat Action Ribbon, recognitions that show not just courage but resilience under pressure." James glanced at Mr. Collins, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The manager's confident posture had faltered. Miss Reynolds continued. "According to his previous supervisors, James is known for his careful, thorough approach to tasks. While he may not always be the fastest, his work is reliable, and often exceeds quality expectations." She looked directly at Mr. Collins. "In this kind of work, accuracy and dependability are just as important as speed. We cannot overlook the value of someone who prevents mistakes rather than rushing and causing errors." The room grew quiet. Some co-workers who had been called in for support exchanged surprised looks. They had seen James's quiet dedication, but hadn't known the full story. Mr. Collins cleared his throat. "I didn't realize, I may have been too quick to judge." James sat quietly, a small but genuine smile spreading across his face. He felt a wave of relief wash over him, the validation he had waited for. It wasn't just about proving he wasn't slow, it was about being understood and respected for who he truly was. Miss Reynolds nodded firmly. "We expect all managers to consider the whole picture. James's military background and work style bring strengths that benefit the team in ways that speed alone can't measure." The tension lifted, replaced by a warm sense of respect. The co-workers who had supported James now spoke up, telling stories of how his steady work had saved them time and trouble. For the first time since starting this job, James felt seen, truly seen. His past wasn't a secret, and it wasn't a weakness. It was the source of his strength. And in that room, with the truth spoken aloud, a new chapter began. After the meeting, things began to change. Mr. Collins approached James quietly, one morning. His voice was softer, less sharp than before. "James, I owe you an apology," he said. "I was wrong to judge you so quickly. I see now how much you bring to this team. I hope we can work better together." James nodded, accepting the apology. It wasn't just words, it felt like a fresh start. Slowly, the respect James earned from his co-workers grew. People asked for his help, trusted his careful work, and started to look up to him. One day, the manager even offered him a small leadership role, overseeing quality control, because they knew James's steady hands could help the whole team succeed. For James, it was more than a job. It was hope. Hope for a new life after the years of service, for a place where his strengths mattered, and where he could finally belong. The story of James reminds us how quick judgments can hurt deeply, especially for those who have carried burdens most of us will never see. It's easy to mistake patience and precision for slowness, but everyone has their own pace, their own way of doing things. And sometimes, the quietest people hold the greatest strength. Respect and understanding are more than just words. They are the foundation for a team, a workplace, and a community that values every person's unique gifts. James's journey shows us that when we take the time to see someone's true story, we might find a hero right beside us, someone who deserves not just a chance, but our respect. And that makes all the difference.